All right, so it looks like last night they went ahead and finalized this trade with Demetrius Johnson for Ben Askren. I feel really happy for Demetrius Johnson. I really do. I feel like Demetrius is one of those guys who just was getting no love from the UFC, kind of like a Stipe Miocic, and now he's not the champ. You know, he was pushing and begging for $2 million to fight TJ Dillashaw. And Dana White said, you know what, I'm not giving you $2 million. And if you don't fight him, I'm just going to close out the flyweight division. You know, he was just being threatened. He was being intimidated. There was a lot going on with Demetrius Johnson that was just ugly. It was really ugly. So unlike Eddie Alvarez, you know, you guys heard the video. If you guys have not heard my reaction video, when I first found out that Eddie Alvarez was going over to one championship, I really, really was hurt. I was just like, dang. I didn't feel like necessarily like he was going down. I just felt like it's tough to see him leave the UFC like that. But a lot of time has passed. Like I said, I took the 2 weeks off, cleared my head a little bit, and I've watched a lot of different interviews, and I'm starting to understand it, and I will get back behind one championship. I don't watch men's fights over at the one championship. I'm just going to be honest with you. I really don't. Every once in a while, I used to watch Ben Askren, but my gosh, Ben. You know, Ben is more of a shit talker, and just the way that he is more of the entertainment instead of the way that he fights, right? So every once in a while I'd watch Ben, but I really didn't quite get into it. But this definitely gives me a reason to get into it. I'm going to download the app again, and I'm going to keep it. I've downloaded that app a couple of times, and then I get rid of it to make space. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to download it, and I'm going to keep it because I want to see Eddie Alvarez, and I do want to see Demetrius Johnson, and I do believe that these are great moves for both of the fighters. I know I'm singing a different tune about Eddie, but I think it's a good move for both of them, especially Demetrius Johnson. Especially Demetrius Johnson. Because he is a really good fighter. You know, I am not a huge fan of Demetrius Johnson because I like personality. Demetrius Johnson has sort of a bland personality, and I'm not really into sort of what he's selling. Like his gimmick is, I won't even say his gimmick. His personality is he's a family guy. You know, he's got his wife, he's got his kids, and then he also plays video games a lot. For me, it just doesn't resonate with me as a fan. But as a fan, his fighting style is out of this world. Some of the things that he does, you're just like, okay, guys, like this guy has to be incredibly athletic to pull this stuff off. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm guilty myself. As Americans, sometimes we just don't appreciate talent the way that we should. Sometimes as Americans, we revert to the lowest common denominator. And I won't say that we revert to it. It's always being sold to us. You know, it's always being sold to us, just the lowest fucking common denominator, basically. It's being sold to us. So when it's pushed on you so much, you start to enjoy it, you start to like it. And then now you have the UFC and everybody's trying to talk shit. Everybody's trying to push their way up the ladder by running their mouth. In some instances, it's good. And in other instances, it's just a joke because you've ran your mouth and you went out there and got beat. So I think that him going over to one championship, I believe that the Asian market might appreciate a Demetrius Johnson more than the UFC fans were going to. Right? MMA in America still has an image problem, a big time image problem. It still has, MMA still has image issues. And the fan base also big time has image issues. There's a lot of racial angst. It's this sort of low-key rumble that you can always hear in MMA. It's low-key. It's starting to get a lot more heated nowadays. I mean, we heard it with Conor McGregor. We heard it with Conor during the lead up to that UFC 229 fight. I'm not going to get into it because we forked it. We have all the way completely forked UFC 229. I mean, the steak, we got to pull it out of the oven. You know, it's cooked. It's cooked. So the only thing I can say is, I think these two fighters going over to one championship, I do believe that they will be appreciated a little bit more over there. And it seems like they're going to be making some good money. I hope that they come out with the contract. That's just me being nosy as hell. What does a one championship contract look like? We all have a general idea of what the UFC contract looks like. And we all know it's a little bit fucked up. But what does the one championship contract actually look like? Right? What does this trade actually mean? We're using the word trade. It's not necessarily a trade. It's sort of just they've negotiated. We'll let this guy go. We'll let this guy go. And we both are okay with what's about to happen, basically. There's no free agency time where you have to go through that time where UFC has dibs on you for a certain number. It's none of that. None of that. So no grace periods, none of that. They just cut the fighters. Both fighters have been cut from their roster. And I believe that Demetrius Johnson definitely already signed last night. He's completely finished signing. So we already know that he at least is making more than $2 million because that's all that he was asking for. It didn't seem like much to me for one of the guys who had the most title defenses. Didn't seem like that much to me. So he's going over to one championship. And what are we getting in the UFC? We are getting Ben Askren. Top wrestler. Top wrestler. Good wrestler. Really good wrestler. And in this day and age where wrestling has been understood a little bit more, even people like myself, right? Initially watching the UFC, you look at the wrestling part, not awe-inspiring. It really isn't. But if you're just looking, I remember one time I was sitting at, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but I was in Orlando. And we were doing it was a bunch of friends. We just drove down there, really. Drove down there one weekend and said we were going to go to Universal Studios or one of the parks. And we went down there. Yeah, we went down there, had a good time. We were drinking, having fun, went to so many different bars, eating this and that and the next. And UFC was playing. MMA was playing in the restaurant. So we all were watching it. Right? We all were watching it. And all of a sudden, boom, you see Ortega knocked out Clay Guida. Ortega knocked out Clay Guida. So I knew what was going on because I watched it low key, right? I watched it low key. I was like, oh, crap. Oh. But for most of that fight, all of my friends were like, what is this? What is this? All of this is homoerotic. They were going in on it. But as soon as Clay Guida got knocked out, they were on their feet, screaming everything. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. And I was screaming too. I loved it, but I loved the whole bit of it. I'm not even gonna lie. I loved all of it. So, it's just one of those things where it's like wrestling, it's growing on the fans, but it's still not quite the bread and butter. So why in the hell did they sign Ben Askren? Ben Askren is the guy who Dana White said he would never sign that curly-headed dude over to the guy with the white guy with the afro or whatever he said about him. He said he would never sign him to UFC. Now, we know Dana White be talking out of his ass because a lot of his lies, we can see it now. Or we can tell that he was just being overly exaggerating too much. He was speaking definitively about a market that changes with the damn tick of the clock. Every tick of the clock, the UFC, the MMA market is changing, and Dana White was talking about it as if it was static. As if it was static. It's come off now like he's selling things, like this and that and the next, like he's trying to hide. No, it's just his personality. It's just his personality. But Ben Askren is coming over. We're not going to get the greatest fights in the world. I think we're going to see some excellence in Ben Askren. But I think the reason why UFC really wants Ben Askren, because that guy is a serious motor mouth. He is a serious shit talker. He is intelligent, incredibly intelligent shit talker, right? So he's witty. There's a difference between a person who yada, 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 yaks their mouth all the time like a Covington, right? Covington yaks. He just yaks his mouth all the time. He's screaming maga this, maga that. He's just carrying on. But none of it is all that witty. He actually sounds like a dork or something. He doesn't really sound like the guy who's cool, who's smart, who reads, he doesn't sound like that guy. Who's socially adjusted. Conor, before these last few fights that Conor McGregor had, I'll say this, before Floyd Mayweather fight. Actually, I'll say this. Before the Nate Diaz fights, Conor McGregor always came off as well-spoken, witty, pretty cool, kind of cool dude. This is before the Nate Diaz fight. Before he started making really, really big money, he just seemed like a fun guy, socially adjusted, everything. And that's why they continue to push, because he had that mouthpiece that people could follow and listen to. You say, yeah, Yeah, I agree with him. I understand what he's talking about. Ben Askren does that. Now, I know Ben Askren has the weirdest, I'm not going to say it's weird. Ben Askren has different political views than I do. He expresses them often. But from a marketing point of view, I'm going to put my personal feelings about his political views aside, and I'm going to say from a marketing point of view. Colby Covington was able to get a lot of fans by being divisive, right? By being polarizing. And I think that in this next coming age, they do want a character who can be polarizing, but they want a character who can also do it and be charming at the same time. Because polarizing and divisive and this certain type of rhetoric, it's on the way out. And that is not an opinion. You can just, there's certain things that you can look at in the economy and you can tell that that it's rotating out. But there's a part of it they still want to hold on to, the part that is marketable, the part that you can sell, the part that people like. Ben Askren is that guy. Ben Askren is definitely that guy with the way that he talks shit. It's just like Colby Covington. It's just he stops just short of insulting anybody, insulting religions, insulting people for the color of their skin or the nation that they live in and things like that. He doesn't go low. But he has his political views. I think that is the signing. The signing is to sell another presser, to sell these fights, because that's what they want. They want a fighter that will sell a fight, and Ben Askren will definitely do it. And then there's going to be those diehard people who just love wrestling. I like wrestling. I don't love wrestling, but I do like it. I'll be honest. When it looks good, it looks great. When it looks good, it looks great. It doesn't have to be, you see what I mean? It doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be like Kat Zingano with slick takedowns. It can just be a straight up takedown, but it'll still look good because it's powerful. You know, if you get a nice high amplitude takedown, or if you get something that we've never seen before in the UFC, right? I think TJ Dillashaw was able to do a takedown that everybody was wondering, what the hell was that? It was a knee tap. No, it wasn't a knee tap. It was kind of a knee tap. It was more like they were debating, people who really like wrestling were debating about what that takedown was. Demetrius Johnson had that finish. Nobody knew what it was. He had that takedown where it was like it was just, what was that, right? There are moments in MMA where we see wrestling really, really shine. I mean, it absolutely shines. And Ben Askren might be the guy that can really show us that top level of wrestling. We also might get the fight with GSP. He's talking shit with everybody on the roster. That will be a separate video. But what I will say about the trade, for lack of better words, what I can say about it, I like it. I'm coming around to it. I got a couple more videos coming out. It's going to be about Ben Askren, all this shit talking that he's doing to the welterweight division. And it's also going to be about the MMA promotions starting to compete with the UFC. The tactics that they have started to use to compete with the UFC. I am seeing something. I saw it at the beginning of the year. And when I finally started the channel, I said, you know what? I have to do it because MMA is really about to explode. It's about to explode. So be expecting those videos, guys. It'll be a little bit more for the people who think deeply about MMA, think more about the market and things like that. But I have to put it out anyways. Like I said, I've been MIA for a while, but now it's going to be channel MMA all the time. I'm getting it back rolling. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts in the comment section.